Bang. Right, so we are broadcasting. Welcome to this first of 5 sessions of Urban Shadows. This Urban Shadows game is being played in 1950s LA in a very much noir style. Our 4 players have put their character sheets together. We are now going to sort of introduce them and understand a little bit more about their characters. And start building up some interrelated bits and pieces, and then start doing the establishing questions for the game as well. We are recording this for the Gauntlet, and we are playing using safety tools. Everyone has been briefed and understands the X card, and we have generated some lines and vowels off screen and a palette to make sure that we're all trying to make each other's game enjoyable as it can be collaboratively. Okay, so one at a time, we'll introduce people and say hello. So Richie Carver is played by Will. So Richie, can you introduce your character to us, please?
So,
in as noir a style as you possibly can.
Richie Carver's a card sharp and a small-time hustler. He's been in the city for a few years. And he's got a secret, which is his sight. He's always one step ahead of people who he's gambled out of their savings, and he's always one step ahead of the Vice Squad. He doesn't quite know what to make of the gift, but it seems like everybody else in the city does. And yeah, he drinks to avoid. He drinks, he gambles, he does. He embraces the material side of life to get past the strange visions and feelings that he gets from people. But he's also willing to use that power, and people come for him for fortunes, and they also come to sort of find an insight on how to blackmail people and other such bits of juicy knowledge.
Awesome, wonderful. So the Oracle does, as a playbook, have the ability to sort of see into the future and do some, say, foretelling. There is a beginning of session move, which I'll get Will to roll for Richie before we start proper play. Before we do that, each playbook also has debts, and those debts are incredibly important in Urban Shadows. They are fundamentally the currency of the game. Because everyone here is probably lovely and kind, they don't usually ask people for debts to get them a newspaper or make them a cup of tea, but you are all cruel and morally grey creatures of the night. So debts matter. I'll be extracting them out of you, and you'll be fools not to extract them out of the NPCs and the characters you meet as well. Okay, so if we look at the debts for the Oracle, the first question for the Oracle is someone helps you understand your dreams and visions. You owe them 2 debts. And as we're doing this, I think there's a couple of choices. You can either, if you've got a great idea for an NPC that we can start generating, do so. Or if one of the characters say, ooh, that should be me, and we start forming a nice network of character relationships, we should go down that route as well. So has anyone got a great idea for someone who might help or understand Richie's dreams and visions, to propose that to Will?
Just a question on that. You said, is it that he owes one character 2 debts, or 2 debts are owed?
He owes one character 2 debts. Debts, if you're a World of Darkness old school player, are like a boon, and you don't break debts if your world's worth anything in the supernatural society.
So I have 2 ideas for this, if no one's got any. So one idea is it's an NPC who is, mystically inclined, perhaps like who would have been the wizard, perhaps, Or it could be Rose, because she's old, right? Like she's a vampire. Or is she a new fledgling sort of born? But she might have seen people with the gift in the past.
I would be happy to take that on.
Cool.
I intend to be quite old.
Cool.
Awesome. So how long then, just establishing question on that, how long have Richie and Rose known each other?
since I came to LA, like about 5 or 6 years ago. And weird people like this woman who claims to be, many years older than she appears, kept coming up to me and asking me to tell them about their auras and their visions, and they looked quite strange to me. And then she's like, you got the sight, that kind of thing. And previous to that, Richie was, just drinking through the visions and just thought he was lucky.
I think I would have you. The only thing about it is I tell you that I'm old, but in Hollywood, nobody's allowed to know.
Oh yeah, no, I mean more like your. I remember back when this was all. Like he keeps dropping things that are like, wait, you would have had to have been like 10 to.
You're established. Established.
Yeah, established. Yeah, way further than you should be.
Excellent. Has anyone got any other questions about that from David or Caroline? Are you happy with the descriptions? Does it come to life for you? I'm going to take that as...
Oh, actually, I suppose what I will ask, as it just occurred to me, is how did their paths cross when they first met?
That's a good question.
Let's see. How are you involved in the Hollywood scene?
I think,
if at all,
mostly in the sort of the excesses of the Hollywood scene, like showing up to the right parties, people spending their money on me to he's my spirit guide kind of thing. But
maybe a hedonistic private party somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I've got an establishing question I'd like to throw into that then, please. Who is the ageless Black Widow of LA's notorious Sunset Strip Vice Circle? Because I'd like to bring her in, and maybe you've got yourself into the Black Widow's thrall.
Sounds good. Is the Black Widow an NPC or is that Rose? Sorry.
Black Widow is an NPC.
Because the description could be very similar.
It could be. I'm not going to. Pearl could claim to be the Black Widow herself if that is Rose's background, or is it maybe a rival?
I think so. Rose is a Hollywood starlet now, and people are sort of weirded out that she seems to not age, but she can't have been one for too long, or it would be too obvious. So I think she would not want to be known as this Black Widow who has been she's trying to keep up an image of being, sort of a vampy version of America's sweetheart. So I think probably Black Widow is not something that she would court as an image, even if that's really what she is.
Is it perhaps an earlier incarnation of her, in the sense of she can't have been pretending to be a starlet for too long? So in a previous decade, was she something else? And just do people occasionally go, "You look a little like"?
It can be another vampire. It can be something completely different. We're trying to populate the city a little bit here as well. So,
all right.
I'm happy to be I think I probably held salons in the 20s for Salvador Dali and Fitzgerald and all of those sorts of people, and maybe had a bit of a reputation as a Black Widow back then. But if we want to make an NPC just to be filling things out, that's fine as well. But
either or both.
Well, slots don't stay empty for long. If you're no longer doing that, somebody else will move in.
Yeah, no, I've shifted roles, and probably locations. I probably was somewhere else holding those salons and being whatever I was being, and now I've moved to Hollywood.
So I'm going to suggest then that there is, if not in the past, there is now another Black Widow who is another vampire and a keeper of lots of forbidden secrets. Okay, so I'm going to move. We're going to go and do 2 deaths each, at least. I'm going to move across to the next player on the sheets there, which is Pearl, who's playing Rose West. So, Pearl, would you like to introduce us to your character, please?
Yeah. So Rose West is, as far as most of the public knows, just a Hollywood starlet. She's sort of known for seeming to not age, which everyone thinks must be like some special beauty cream or regimen that she uses on the whole, except for people who maybe are a bit more knowledgeable about the supernatural and why someone might not age at all. And those people probably tend to avoid her because she is quite set on her secret staying secret. And if she suspects that someone might reveal it to her adoring public, she would probably want to get rid of them. So that's sort of her in a nutshell. She occasionally will just fixate on someone who smells delicious, and when she comes in a room, people tend to notice. And if she fixes you with her stare, you're pretty much doomed if you are not someone who can resist that sort of thing. So yeah, sort of a dual life. Her supernatural life, in which she's maybe a little bit scary, and her public life, in which she just, loves everyone. How does sunlight affect vampires / me? Is there wasn't anything in the playbook about it.
Absolutely for you to define, okay? And it's an important question about urban shadows. If you are playing one of the supernatural archetypes, as you are the only one in play, you also get to tell us what is true or not true about common superstitions about things like vampires, werewolves, or whatever else. Okay, I think that's really cool for you to answer that. Before we answer that question, and I will ask you to answer that because that is important. The starting move for a vampire is you hunger for. So eternal hunger. You either hunger for human blood, flesh, or emotions. What feeds Rose's hunger?
I think emotions do. I think that's why she likes being adored by her audiences and whatnot. She takes in that energy.
An emotional vampire. That would make a lot of sense for her being a movie star. Yeah. So there are 2 questions here about what about vampires? How do vampires go out in the sun?
So I think at this point, we have developed methods to combat the old sunlight issue. We certainly don't sparkle, but I want to say we either have a cream we can put on, or there's some sort of mystical or supernatural food that we can eat that as long as we eat a bit each day, we're okay.
So establishing.
So, could I suggest something?
Yes,
maybe it's just when you're well fed.
Yeah, that would work for me as well. I do have in my thoughts for Rose that while her overall hunger is really for emotions, she also eats people pretty regularly to keep up her youthful beauty, has to infuse things. So luckily she has no shortage of people willing to come to her dressing room. So feeding is generally not an issue.
Pale, glamorous, doesn't seem to age, doesn't go out in the sun. Do we think Dita Von Teese is a vampire?
I mean, I think Dita Von Teese thinks she's a vampire a little bit.
That might be true. Awesome. I think that's very useful. I think she definitely shows up on film, right? She'd be a pretty bad movie star if she didn't show up on film. And do feel free to think about, as the players of your playbooks, what are true with all of them. And that will be similar for the Tainted and Holy Water, the Wolf and Silver Bullets, all those sort of things matter. But let's ask a depth question. action. There are 3 deck questions for the vampire in play, and I think I'd like to understand the first one, especially what you told us about getting you fed human flesh. Someone makes sure you are fed regularly. You owe them 2 debts. Is anyone interested in putting their hands up to form a relationship with Rose on this, or would Rose like to propose an NPC that we might use?
I think it might have to be an NPC who would be like my manager or handler, because I'm thinking it's someone who can bring people to my dressing room or what have you after, or like, you know, sort of suss out at parties who like maybe wouldn't be missed as much as anyone else, or who, that sort of thing, who also keeps people away. Like movie stars usually have someone like that. And I don't think any of you have taken on roles that would put you in that sort of job, unless you have, in which case, please tell me.
Okay. So is this person immortal?
I think they are, and a bit in enthrall. And or I've threatened to eat them if they don't bring me people, something like that. But
yeah, they have 2 debts on you, so it's in that respect, it can be a bi-directional relationship, but you're currently in their debt. So have we got a name for your manager? Anyone like to suggest?
How about Maggie? Dear old Maggie. Bringing me the best food. Milo, hush. Milo, hush. I'm not actually eating people, bud.
Awesome. That sounds great. David. Oh. So hi, David. Do you want to introduce us to your character?
Certainly. I am playing Lee. Lee uses he, him pronouns, though no more names than that. Lee is in the wolf playbook, so he is a werewolf. He's moved to LA relatively recently, last year or 2. Maybe a little longer, but you know, a couple of years. He's from somewhere back east, maybe the Bible Belt, that sort of region. He's young, probably maybe early 20s. He looks he looks like he's lived a hard life. He's quite well worn looking, quite rangy, I suppose. Clearly has muscle, but you know, very much in the you know, he lives quite actively and doesn't eat perhaps as often as he should. He mostly lives rough or not far from it. He's based in West Hollywood, just off Santa Monica Boulevard. He looks after a group of essentially sort of queer street kids, or you know, again, young adults who live in similar circumstances to him. They probably take over squatting houses, live where they can, and he has the protection of another werewolf that we'll probably get into in a moment. But he is not yet fully inducted into another werewolf pack. He is essentially working solo at the moment, establishing himself.
Awesome. So one of the starting wolf moves is it comes with the territory, and that is very useful for us all to know if you're actively patrolling the territory. I think I've got a vision and a view of it for Lee, David, but can you sort of describe what does his territory look like?
Yeah, certainly. And I'll do my very brief and not very well schooled history lesson here, but the territory is in is just sort of somewhere around Santa Monica Boulevard and the Sunset Strip. It's in the area of West Hollywood, which is not a part of LA City proper. So it's still under the local law enforcement is still the LA County sheriffs, who have a somewhat cozy relationship with organized crime. And as a result, there's a lot of bars on the Sunset Strip itself, particularly a lot of gay bars that are not allowed to operate within the city proper. So it's kind of the beginnings of the queer village in LA. The bit he's in particularly is not as fancy as the Sunset Strip. It is run down, more abandoned buildings, or demolished and being reconstructed buildings, a few seedy bars, that sort of thing.
If anyone's watching this and is in the mood for noir, Dark City, the real Los Angeles Noir, is a fantastic big heavy coffee table book, and it's got loads of fantastic pictures from the 30s through 50s queer scene in LA. I'll scan some through for you, David, so you can see them to give you a real picture of it. It's incredibly interesting. But one of my establishing questions, and you chose this, not me, was who hunts the unwary tourist in the neon lights of Venice Pier and Santa Monica Boulevard?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I think I might go a bit. I think that it's a there's a sort of a fairy prince / princess who is they sort of glamour themselves as a sort of, Hollywood, maybe as maybe actually as specific Hollywood stars, or certainly as Hollywood playgirl types, and they lure unsuspecting tourists into vice and corruption, and eventually into the Fey realm itself, never to return.
See, there's lots and lots of neon glitz, and the pictures again of these streets in this time. They're full of lighting, and I've got this vision now of like a fairy will-o'-the-wisp under neon lights, driving people away to their doom.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Right on your doorstep. Now, again, for people who haven't played Urban Shadows before, one of my tools as a GM are threat clocks. So because that question directly relates to David's character, I've noted that down as a threat clock. I'm probably going to do the same with the Black Widow, because that means we've then got some plots which move on, and the power play of the city around you, whether you're connected to it or not. Okay. So looking at the wolves again, there's a deck question. So I'm going to be mean and pick the first one, and then let everyone else pick their second one. But I'm going to go for the middle one. Someone hired you for a job, Lee, and you fucked it up. You owe them 2 debts. Who do you owe them to? And is that, again, an NPC or one of the characters? If one of the players has got a reason or a thought for this, I'm looking at our tainted they may have debts over you.
Yeah, I think I'm interested in it being a player, but I'm interested to see who thinks it might be.
So
Order those words in a way that makes sense.
Bid for Lee's debt.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, essentially, in terms of what Lee does, I can see him probably involved in very sort of petty street level crime, probably some sex work, probably some drug trafficking, whatever pays the bills, essentially. So
yeah, I don't think he's necessarily the tainted typical Mark in that sense. So
could I suggest something just as a
link? Go.
So you're a talent scout, right? You're the tainted. Yep. You're luring people into deals. Maybe what you hired Lee to do was to like scare off the competition, like convince somebody to sign with you, or like get them high, like you were getting him to be like the middleman so that you could come in and offer them, like, and he fucked it up because he had a pang of conscience or whatever, right? Like some bright young thing that,
or even just to move another talent scout on who actually turned out to be a lot nicer than me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's poaching your agents.
he did fuck it up, so he owes you debts because he didn't complete the job.
I'm interested in that one as well. But
see, that's a good. Did someone make a play for it? Make your proposal, Rose. It's Dave's debt to give away, or Lee's debt to give away. So I would always say the most interesting story gets it.
I think I had a stalker who was not someone who would have been good to feed on because they were not stable, that Maggie identified. And we hired Lee to get rid of said stalker. And he, I was going to say, he ate the wrong person, or he got rid of the wrong person. And it was actually one of my fans that I was quite fond of that happened to have like the same first name. And so now I'm without one of my favorite fans and still have a stalker. And do not appreciate that whatsoever.
Yeah, I like that. I can see that. I can see that working.
Can I just back up on something you said there, Pearl, which just as something in passing. You said you didn't want to eat them because you spotted they were unstable. Have we got a touch of, say, sanguinary animism here going on? If you feed on somebody who has issues, do you inherit them, iZombie style, for a while?
I don't think I take the issues. I just think they're less tasty. Like, because I'm an emotional vampire as well as like needing the blood, I really want like straight adoration and whatever else, and like the weirder, possibly violent parts, like it's just not as tasty.
So it doesn't make you weird and violent. You don't pick up narcissism if you feed on a narcissist or anything like that.
I certainly hope not. My personality would be changing all the time. I have to eat very regularly so I can go out in the sun.
Cool. So do make some note to the debts you hold uncharactered on your own character sheet. I put them, when I'm seeing them, onto the main sheet as well. The person you hold a debt over is not obliged to remind you that you have got their debts. So Caroline, let's find out about Ruby.
Right, so I'll actually read back out the blurb I put that up on the chatter earlier, because I think that works pretty well. Mm-hmm. So, the bright-eyed kid who came to be a star in the 1930s, and when the dreams turned thin and the piggy bank savings ran out, ended up first as a waitress, and then at the nasty end of making ends meet. They say that deals get made at crossroads, but they're not always the creepy, out-of-town kind. Sometimes they're the one where a woman stands beneath a streetlight as the rain lashes down and the stoplights take forever to change, every puddle reflecting red in the shadows. And a man in a car all red and black in the darkness, offers a deal too good to refuse. So, Ruby Chance made it against all the odds. Right place, right time, knowing the right people. She knows how this town works. Better to be the organ grinder than the monkey. Why are you in front of the camera when you can be a talent scout? There's always some fat cat director who's anxious to meet a darling young protege to be his muse. Always a country mouse with dreams of seeing their name in lights. Always new souls to ensnare in celluloid and stardust. So there we go.
Cool. So, Tainted are in service of some infernal force of some sort. So one thing I'd like to understand about Ruby is who's she working for?
I have certainly an image of an utter real creamed city slicker. Think Lucifer in the TV series. Think Al Capone. Something underworld, but the deep sort of underworld. It is something demonic, but it is something with a on the streets of LA presence.
So the same way you're a glamorous person who recruits bright young things into the business, there was a glamorous
there's
elder
another one
thing.
higher up. This is multi-marketing strategy. Yeah, she is effectively bringing in more of the same. You read about that quite nasty cult that literally was going on in Hollywood, which got one of the lasses from Smallville and things involved. It was just so weird. And they were all, basically feeding younger actresses up to this cult leader and things. It was bizarre. I don't think she's necessarily literally always passing people on. It is sometimes bleeding them out of all that hope and dream and leaving them as a fragile wreck of what they once were. When they say people burn out in Hollywood, it's quite spiritually literal if she gets her hands on you.
So would you like to name this figure who is offered you the deal in the first place?
I'm not sure she knows his name because names have power.
So we'll call him Mr. Nobody at the moment.
Yeah, he may well have given some sort of alias, but she knows it's not his actual name. She knows enough by now. In the same way that her name undoubtedly is not Ruby and is not Chance. That is an alias that she has brought on since she took this deal.
So real names have power of your kind?
Oh, yes.
Good to know. The core move, one of the starting moves for the Tainted is the Devil Inside. When you assume your demon form, roll with blood. What does Ruby's demon form look like? If you don't want to describe that now and we want to wait till we let it out,
yeah, I think let's wait till we let it out, then I've got a bit more time to think about it.
But do think about it.
I will do.
The best part of a Tainted is when the Tainted finally lets the devil out. Debt question for you. You're protecting someone from a dark power and they owe you 2 debts. Whom is that? PC or NPC? Has anyone as an NPC or a PC got a desire to form that debt relation?
I wouldn't mind being in debt to everybody in some level or another. I feel like that's part of being a really crap hustler with psychic powers. So it occurred to me that one of my opening questions is I desperately need something. What? And I was thinking that maybe what I desperately need at the moment is someone to keep the Black Widow off my back, because she's heard that I've got you know, she's interested. She deals in secrets, and who better to tell her secrets than somebody who can see things that people would rather keep hidden? And yeah,
Do you effectively run to one of the other worrying women?
yeah, well,
I don't. Between this Fey princess that's got mentioned, between Rose, between Ruby, and the Black Widow, there seems to be some quartering going on of who gets to chew on the bright young things first.
welcome to LA.
But what I quite like about this is they've all ended up being female characters. It's not just the predatory Weinstein type character. It flips it about.
Yeah,
I'm sure those are out there, but
cool. No, Karen. Well, sorry.
I was just going to say, what do you think about that being the debt?
Yeah,
Arlo you two debts.
Yeah. And that, yeah, it's not so much I'm necessarily saving you out of the goodness of my heart as because it's good business.
Yeah.
Maybe Ruby has got a heart, but no one works without debt and service. So we're going to go back around once again to answer one more debt question. You can choose which one you want to do this time. If you chose an NPC last time, try to push into a PC this time. So we're starting to build up some relationships. This works much better as a game, especially with a big storm coming at you if you've already got some ties to the characters. So I'm going to go back around to Richie. Richie, you can choose one of your debt questions or propose something else that would be a debt that you want to potentially offer out.
Would it be better to do an NPC or a PC?
I have no strong feelings. You chose a PC first time.
I did, but I do really like all being webbed up with the other PCs.
Then choose your poison.
And I would say that I would like. I've had a dire prophecy about. I think Lee would be my suggestion.
It seems quite likely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know how to help you yet, and I'm toying about whether my dire prophecy. I think my dire prophecy is still quite vague, but it's it's blood and like some of the friends that I've seen you hanging around with, and I don't quite know how it's all going to end.
I think that quite ties quite nicely into the one I was considering next anyway. So yeah, that sounds cool.
Cool.
Awesome. So how is that, one or two debts to
just the one.
Just the one that you had that Leah has on you, yeah? Cool. Rose, which of your debt questions?
So if it's all right, I've only played one session of this game so far, of this game, otherwise, which was yesterday. So I'm still getting used to it all. But I would love to just read out the other two and see if anyone's interested in either.
Sure.
So my other two are that someone relies on me for their fix and they owe me a debt. And that someone bears responsibility for me becoming a vampire and they owe me a debt. So would any of you like either of those? All of my debt questions sort of lend themselves to NPCs based on who we all are as PCs, which is unfortunate because I would like to get some debts from people here. But
I would think I'd like to point that question at Ruby to see if she can think that she's got you into mess.
Yeah, because it depends how long you've been a vampire, really. Because it may well be that some of the time when you were running the salons and things, you were still mortal at that point. That was when you were actually young. do you want to have actually been one of Ruby's early spots, as it were, but for some reason, rather than ending up soul sucked to hell, you ended up going another route, possibly that she was following up on some sort of debt or something herself and did a side deal, which ended up with you getting bit.
I like the idea of it quite a bit. I was thinking of being older than it sounds like probably
Yeah.
would be, but I couldn't abandon that.
Yeah.
So could I suggest that maybe it's not Ruby, but it is Mr.
My
Nobody,
patron. Yeah.
who was responsible for you. Maybe he had traded you in for a favor to one of the vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And that potentially ties your characters together tangentially, if not directly.
Yeah, that works.
Mr. Whom?
Mr. Nobody. He hasn't got a name. He's the one with the Brill cream hair and the Don Draper look who does deals in the town.
Okay. So yeah, it's fine with me if Mr. Nobody was the one. But so then he owes me a debt?
Yes, sorry, you are they owe you a debt. So you have one debt on Mr. Nobody. I'll put that
Which
in.
maybe is going to be on Ruby, we're saying? If she was involved? Is that...
No, I think you hold it on Ruby's patron, who is
Ruby
a more
patron,
senior. So Mr. Nobody is the more senior patron of the tainted in the city. So
Okay. Does anyone want my third one? So I'm directly connected to somebody in that way. It was that someone relies on me for their fix. What are your fixes, everyone?
Okay, I'm not going to hell.
Well, when we finish off the other debts, you might be tied to them through
That's
the other angles.
Yeah.
Okay.
we can come back round if not. Okay, so Lee, let's see if you want to give both of your other debts away.
I guess I will. There's one I think I'd like an NPC for because it kind of ties into my territory stuff. But the other one that, if anyone is interested, if does someone live in my territory and benefit from my protection?
How close is your territory to Hollywood?
I mean, technically, it's in Hollywood, just not the nice bit of Hollywood.
I think I need to live in the nice bit of Hollywood. I live in like a posh apartment and such. It's right there in my playbook. Otherwise, I would say I'd be interested in having. Although I suppose you did mess up the stalker situation, so maybe I wouldn't want your protection so much anyway.
Yeah, that's
Never
fair.
mind.
Does that fairy princess live in your territory?
I don't think that. Yeah, no, I don't think they really benefit from my protection, though.
But I was wondering if maybe they benefit from your protection indirectly.
Yeah,
like your presence there.
Yeah.
Keeps things in a way they can use it.
For this one, I think I was more interested if another player wanted it, then feel free. But otherwise, I'm not.
I mean, I'm also happy for that to be another thing that you have on me, honestly. But I don't know if I'm just vacuuming up all the debts, basically. And my character's going to start the game, more in depth than the GDP of England.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm certainly happy for you because I mean, it probably sounds like the sort of part of town you might live in. So if you're happy with that, then that's cool.
I'm happy with that. This is just my first time playing Urban Shadows, and I'm not sure if there's like a game-breaking moment where you've got owed debts to literally everybody all the time.
That's a great currency for making plot happen and move along and pushing characters in directions they probably wouldn't have wanted to go in. But hey, that's for fun. So cool. Okie dokie. And what was the third one, David? Do you wanted to?
Oh yes. So my third one, sorry, is I've lost the bit where it is. Yeah, someone is hiding you from someone or something powerful. I owe them a debt, and I think this is basically a leather daddy called, let's be on the nose about it, Wolf, who is a werewolf as well. I think the person he is hiding me from is the wolf that created me, or that infected me, however you want to term it.
So he's a leather daddy. Say that again. He's hiding from.
He's hiding me from my creator, essentially, who is on the prowl to track me down. This may well be tied into the prophecy that Richie had.
It may do. In fact, it's just gone on my threat wheel as such. Whoa.
I think the guy he's protecting me from is probably from out of town as well. I think I was transformed before I came to LA, but I think he's caught up on my trail finally.
Okay, and Tainted. So Ruby, you have.
So I've got them here actually.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them is somebody is trying to save you and keep suffering for it. You owe them 2 debts. So is somebody who out there is enough of a fool to try and save somebody who's already made deals with the darkest of dark?
I feel like that's probably me.
Well, that one thing I don't know whether it quite fits with, or whether if you and Richie are kind of looking out for each other and are in the same bit of town, are you actually both having a bit of a go at this? And I owe each of you a debt. Is Dave happy for that to spread the debt around a bit?
I don't think that I'm trying to help you out. No, I sympathise.
I help other people out by decoupling me from the power.
I sympathise, but I don't. I stay clear of you as much as possible.
No, I'm up for a Boy Scout werewolf trying to, I don't know, remove my horns or something. You just need a good cuddling. Help me another starlet.
So, that sounds cool.
So there have been scrapes because, other people in this town are bigger than you are. But,
okay.
Yeah.
So it's quite noir, isn't it? That they've got this noble figure who don't believe the dame's that bad. Awesome. The final question: you have a demon patron who holds the contract for your soul. You owe them 3 debts. Well, I think we've established that one.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah. So Mr. Nobody here.
So the intro questions were, I find, a little bit bland on the character creation in Urban Shadows, but if anyone wants to answer any of them, feel free to do so now. But I think you've described your characters way better than the blank intro questions on the character sheets do. Okay, let's. Oh, sorry, was that anyone?
No, I was just going to say, I think most of mine got answered between the debts and everything else. And I have my little intro that I wrote, but I'm going to save it for next session.
Awesome. Grand. So let's take a 10-minute break there, folks. When we come back, what we're going to do, I've got some more establishing questions to sort of build the city. The city for me in Urban Shadows is like the 5th character in the game, because the game is all about the tensions inside the city. So I want to populate that a little bit more, and that'll give us about still a good sort of hour and a half's worth of in-character play. But I think the threats and the problems are starting to build up. very clearly for me here. Those threats and those I will put up for people for the next session as well. So we've got the clocks ticking away, so you can see what's moving around the city that isn't necessarily under control. Okay, so if we're all right, it's just gone 5 to the hour now, so we'll come back for 5 past. Okay. Alrighty, we are back. So I've got a couple of establishing questions. Help me fill out the rest of the threats on my clock. And I'm going to ask these questions and point them at you. So, a brutal murder of a rising starlet almost exposed the supernatural side of the city. Ruby, who died and how did you know them? The cat needs to get on the wait list like everybody else. You're muted. I think she's just ejecting one of the cats who's desperate to play.
Yep. Cat was literally in my face and I could not get to the screen. Right. Okay. Sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Right. So, a brutal murder of a rising starlet almost exposed the supernatural side of the city. Who died and how did Ruby know them?
Right. I think this was a lass who went by the name of Blanche Fletcher. I had my eye on her. Well, I did initially have an eye on her as a nice little snippet for myself, but then realised that actually she had enough talent that burning out wasn't going to look too feasible, that she might well be a handy lure for some of the more sleazy casting agents and so forth, but she herself probably needed to stick around because not everybody who comes through Ruby's books ends up with bad things happening to them. Otherwise, she wouldn't manage to survive in this town because you can't just feed your hunger for souls. You've got to actually make a living as well. So yes, I think she was one of Ruby's success stories rather than tidbits. But yes, something took Blanche out. Does anyone want to suggest what that might have been, just in terms of some of the playbooks and things?
I'll suggest that, if you mind. So, Will, what was the supernatural element of the crime, and how did it almost get Richie into trouble?
Ooh, how did it get me into trouble? I think the supernatural element of the crime was she burned alive. Is that too much maybe for some people? But like spontaneously combusted style, you know, like impossible to happen in. I'm thinking of something like quite big and sort of
from the inside out kind of weirdness.
yeah, like, you know, the room wasn't burned or her car wasn't burned even, but she was. Yeah, maybe her car, like a fancy like convertible, you know, just rolled to a stop with her, and then the car itself was untouched.
Yeah. Oh, even the white leather, spotless.
Yeah, and I think it got Richie in trouble because he saw it. He couldn't sleep because of dreams for weeks of this beautiful woman going up in flames. And then he looked out the window one day, and there was a, you know, pristine Cadillac rolling to a halt with black smoke coming out the top of it. And he was like the first guy on the scene, you know.
That's really sad. Who's he started dreaming of instead?
Lee.
Can I suggest, you wanted to know how he'd always got in trouble? Can I suggest that in an attempt to sleep, he had been writing these things down? And you know, you write them down, you scrumple them up, you throw them in the waste paper just to try and exercise them. And a PI found them before it happened and thought he was planning it. Or something like that.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe I like the idea though that maybe the trouble comes more from whoever did this to the starlet.
Oh, that they hear you predicted it.
Yeah, like you know, I started to look into it afterwards because like it, you know, it haunted me, and you know, whoever it was has heard about this and they don't like me looking into.
Rose, one of the other vampires in the city wanted Blanche as a child and was willing to make a deal with Ruby. Who was it, and how do you know them?
One of the other vampires in the city wanted it.
Blanche, the dead girl.
With Ruby or with Rose?
Okay.
Sorry, Ruby is wanted. So one of the other vampires in the city wanted Blanche to take as a child and turn into a vampire, and was willing to make a deal with Ruby. Who are they? How do you know them? And what's their current mood?
I don't think it's the Black Widow. I saw that in the chat and considered, but I think it should be someone slightly less important. Because I think the Black Widow maybe would have succeeded. So I'll just make up a name.
Yeah.
Maybe Victoria and Victoria the vampire. And I know her actually because maybe she and I were sired by Mr. Nobody around the same time. And she came to my salons back in the day. And she has made her way to LA, although she is not in show business. But we have remained kind of, you know, sistery friend vampires this whole time. Because you have to have confidants when you're alive for so long, you know. Someone has to relate. But I think because I personally don't want to deal with grief with my I'm going to say that she's in a predatory mood, maybe.
Who's Victoria blaming? Who does she think?
What, Blanche didn't spontaneously combust, or we like she did?
Yeah, she did spontaneously. They think someone.
Maybe.
Yeah, they're pretty sure that someone has done the Blanche in. So someone is moving against Victoria's interests. Who is she blaming? Is she
I mean,
blaming
if it's
Ruby or someone
it's
else?
definitely Ruby.
Mhm.
And I think that makes sense. But I think I don't know how much we know about Ruby. If we know that Ruby has like a patron,
Mhm.
I think maybe then Victoria wouldn't know whether it was just Ruby or like Ruby's patron or Ruby being ordered by her patron. So she's not exactly sure, but she's just very angry. And when I say predatory, maybe like is just taking it out on whoever is around. And I think I would be trying to rein her in so that she doesn't behave so recklessly that she gets noticed as a vampire, because we need to keep the whole vampires in the city under wraps. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Sorry, I know that wasn't speaking in very Noirish language
That's
there,
all right.
but yeah, I think that's what it is. I think she suspects that it has something to do with Ruby and or powers having to do with Ruby, but she's not sure, and she's just angry at the world, and
Mhm.
lashing out in ways that are concerning.
Okay, thank you. So, LA in its origins was founded by 11 families called the Pobladore, and these families are actually very ancient and powerful vampires. One of these lords were recently killed. Who do they think is to blame, Lee?
Oh, go on. Let's. Actually, no. I think they blame. I was caught between two things there on how I wanted to phrase it. I think they blame. I think they do blame the church. I'm wondering if there's maybe a specific, like a specific, like sort of fire and brimstone preacher who's sort of set up a new mission in town.
Awesome. Rose, how are the other vampires in the city taking the fact that one of the ancients was murdered, destroyed?
I think there is uneasiness more than anything else. Like perhaps we just didn't really think someone could do that. Like the really ancient ones are very powerful, and they became ancient by not being able to be killed all this time. So if someone is able to kill an ancient, then the rest of us are at even greater risk, right? Because we would be less powerful. So I think there's sort of an unease and a like distrust more than usual for non-vampires, for other supernatural factions, I suppose, or things. And does that make sense? Am I
It
making
does.
sense?
It does. No, that makes
Um,
sense.
Much more in like a sort of defensive posturing than an offense one. I don't think we're going to try to go after anyone because we are alarmed.
Richie, you've done some work for one of the ancients before. It's the only time that you can't read a thing from someone. What does that feel like for Richie?
I think that it's not so much that I can't read someone as that all I read is death, like the stillness, the cold, the kind of the emptiness. You know, like I read a void rather than a lack of feeling something. Like there's just no signals to make of it because it's like reading, you know, the empty space in a room. And it's sort of a relief, but at the same time, it's chilling.
Ruby, that one of the ancients has been destroyed, has unsettled the balance of power in the city. Give me one example of what started changing.
I think there are various werewolves that have started expanding their territories. Normally, the vampires have a lot of the more corporate stuff pinned down, and therefore get down. The beasts are taking over, basically. Basically, normally the vampires have such strong control over a lot of the mortal world that even that while the werewolves will manage to control a lot of the low-level gangs and the poorer turfs that the vampires aren't interested in, there is quite a lot of delineation between those. And with one of the ancients dropping out, a lot of their influence has just dominoed, and suddenly there are all these unpredictable gaps in what was a fairly tightly knit web of corruption. And yes, you'd expect the other vampires to be moving in and sweeping up the pieces, but a lot of them are looking to their own backs. They're so spooked that they are tightening up their own defenses rather than expanding, and as a result the werewolves are taking advantage of it and moving into perhaps more corporate suited territories than they would otherwise have been able, would even have considered doing so. But the power vacuum is changing how the werewolves are operating, or at least the more established ones.
Okay.
Can I slightly change my last answer in response to that? I think that presently all of that is true and we are on the defensive, but like as the signs that the werewolves are moving in start to become more apparent, that unease is going to start to be balanced by like a bit of territorial.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I'm setting that up as something of a turf war, as the vampires try and grab stuff which is theirs by tradition, if not theirs in the specifics, and the werewolves are trying to move into a new sphere for themselves.
Yes, I think that was an excellent setup. I just was thinking, like, if it was already happening, that probably we wouldn't just be on the defensive. We would also be noticing that peripherally and
I think
percolating.
going to be actively maneuvering and shifting, and it's going to be a very unstable war ground, as it were, with a lot. I would say probably more posturing and tentative explorations than active street. It's not street by street battles or anything, but it's
so far
people trying to figure out what they can get away with. And
that's fine. Yeah. Okay. So absolutely, but one of the facets of and I like about Urban Shadows is these clocks and these threats are now around you, and they've set the other tensions that are going on in the city. So the city is moving, and the tensions are moving with or without you. So the clocks move on when certain things happen, and that means threats are likely to affect or get drawn. You are going to get drawn into them. If you've read the Dresden Files, I think that's where this really comes from as the heart of what it does. You just get dragged into bigger beasts battles until you become more important within the city. One more establishing question, not too long for everyone to answer this. The heat in the city has been relentless. It's been like a tinderbox. Give me an example of this. And this can be about the environment, crime, people, temperature, whatever you want to. I'm going to start with Richie. If you want to do it in a noir monologue, you get double points.
The day's so hot, people are living for the nighttime. The drinks come out when the sun sets down, and they don't stop until the early hours. Basically, it's just because the days are so stiflingly hot that when it comes to the afternoon, like normally people, the glitzy and the glamorous might start in the early afternoon and blah blah blah, but now it's getting more raucous, more even more hedonistic, like wilder, as people don't even leave the house until it's way after sundown, and it's cool at the night time, and so things go on until the sun comes up in the morning.
Got you. Rose, same question to you.
I think I have very similar impressions. We vamps do need to feed to keep up our daylight resistance, and the girl's got to have her fans. And with the heat so bad, I would just have to be eating almost everyone to get by. So I'm not going out much during the day because I do adore my fans, and I try not to eat too many of them. But a dame's got to do what a dame's got to do. So I think my vamp friends and I are trying to avoid the daylight hours just to make sure that we don't get too hungry. But we do enjoy a bit of hedonistic partying all night. So in some ways, it's actually working in our favor,
Okay. Good. Lee, same question.
Yeah, the days have barely a cloud in the sky. The sunlight is bright and white and bleaches the color out of everything. It's so bright. The grass and the trees are starting to wither under the unrelenting heat of it all.
It's the sort of heat that could burn a dame to ashes sitting in a car. Ruby, same question. If Ruby is back.
There is talk of an artist's strike because it's so hot that every time the cameras are pointing at the street, there's shimmer coming up from the asphalt. The actors can't get demanding iced water, lemonade, ginger beer, everything they want. They can't be delivered fast enough. Then, in a very not noir thing, everybody's disappearing off for bathroom breaks as soon as somebody calls action. The gaffers and things are just, these are not conditions anybody can work in. So the film industry is on the brink. There is talk of strike, and there are mutterings of strike. And yes, it's so close to the tipping point. At the moment, they're just about managing to keep people going by offering better wages but it's not looking good.
Good. I feel that I can feel the city, and with that, we'll start the session move. About an hour's of play left tonight, and then we have 4 really solid play sessions. That leaves us in a scenario where I'd like to set the scene at the Cairo, and the Cairo is one of the famous 40s onwards clubs in LA. It, with the Trocadero and the Mocambo, are the 3 clubs to be at. Each of you, in some way, the bouncers or someone knows you, and they'll always find you a table. Okay, so you're all going to meet there. But one of the things we do at the start of the session is there's a session intro and a session end move that I ask everyone to do. At the beginning of every session, announce which character your character trusts the least. Their player will spotlight a faction for your character that isn't already marked, mark that faction. And just before I go any further, you have to mark all 4 factions to get an advance in Urban Shadows. And it means you start moving through the different circles of power and unloading the plot, okay? Tell the MC about a rumor or conflict that you've heard about that faction, building on a previous established information, if you'd like, and roll then that player with the faction. So I'm going to go in again, character keeper order. Richie, which player does Richie trust least?
Which
character?
Player?
Character, sorry.
Okay.
Players a wee bit personal. Everybody's trustworthy.
I think I trust. It's got to be Ruby or Rose. I think I trust Ruby the least.
That's just stereotyping the Tainted. Every time I've played a game with the Tainted in, they're always the one that people are least trusted. Okay, their player will spotlight a faction for you, Richie. So who's? I know Caroline. Okay, so yeah. So Ruby gets to name a faction for Richie.
So if I say Knight, who marks Knight on what?
So Richie's marking Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I should have an extra stat. Is that just a?
Usually in the stat, it tells you to put one of them up, I think.
Add 1 to one of these. Okay, that's fine. I was just being blind on that.
So their player will spotlight a faction for your character, mark that faction, which we've done. And then you're going to tell me, Ruby, about a rumor or a conflict you've heard about going on inside Power.
Knight?
Oh, no, you said Knight, didn't you? Knight, yeah.
Yeah. So remind me which. So Knight are vamps and things?
Vampires, the werewolves, and there's one other. If anyone can remind me off the top of my head.
Is it ghosts, I think?
Spectres, yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
Well, we've not done anything with spectres yet.
Do we need to, or do we want to build out of one of the existing factions or rumors? I would just suggest to keep it tighter tonight if we possibly can.
Okay. The suggestion I was going to make if
go for it. Yeah.
Was Blanche is still driving the streets.
Nice. I should have shut my mouth. So Blanche now will go into the Knight as a
white Cadillac driven by a starlet and a plume of smoke.
So now what I'd like you to do, did you put out already, well, a roll for your party? Did people have a roll? I'll just put a roll for your party link in.
There we go. Got one.
No, right, cool. So we'll use that as a roll for the party one. So that means, well, what I'd like you to do in relation to this little problem that Ruby is so lovingly set up for you is roll with your Knight. Oh, that's a -1. As if.
Oof, great. Well, that's a 5 then.
I didn't actually look at what yours were at the time. I was just thinking, what can I think of something to do with?
Yeah, on a miss, you're caught flat-footed, unprepared or unaware. The MC will tell you who's coming at you. Not quite now, I won't, but I will do. So thanks for that. That sets me up a lovely hook for later on in the club. Good. So that allows us to again to expand or build with NPCs, set factions at each other, and get us into the middle of problems. It seems quite Richie that for no particular reason, someone is after him. So, with that in mind, would someone like to paint the scene of a fabulous 1940s height of opulence LA nightclub called the Cairo?
So I think the inside is all done up in like those big light sconces, big sort of Art Deco light sconces and stuff, columns that are all painted in like, well, I say gold leaf. It's not gold leaf, but you know, it's painted gold, and like bright blue tiles in between all the gold to give it that kind of very Egyptian, you know, Tutankhamun look.
Mock European, so mock Egyptian, wonderful. Where do we find Rose in the club, and what's she doing?
Just realized that's me. I think, you know, she's just sort of hobnobbing with other celebrities. I'm going to assume that they're performers, like maybe a big band type thing, or like a small live orchestra doing jazz or something like that. So we're all sitting at like a very exclusive table, enjoying the entertainment, and I think Maggie is there, sort of fending off anyone undesirable and also scoping out the club for a possible snack. But meanwhile, just sort of, you know, doing what celebrities do only in the 1940s. So, you know, less selfies and whatever else, and more just
that's fine. So at the tables with cocktails, I'm going to place the wonderful Gregory Peck at the table with you. Who doesn't know Gregory Peck, I will stick a link into chat. But this is a to-do table. He's above your fame, but he's one of the most famous people here tonight. Quietly drinking an old-fashioned, smoking a cigarette. There is always a camera girl somewhere in the club willing to take pictures with someone, and there's always another girl with a tray of cigarettes. As she comes through, she approaches Richie and asks you if you'd like to buy some cigarettes.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll give me a pack.
She passes them across and say that'll be 25 cents.
And Richie will fish 25 cents out of his pocket, hand it over, and as he's handing it over, he'll you know, like touch the back of her hand, and skim the surface, and basically, like, should I roll for that? Or I'm just basically trying to, like, he's using his abilities to sort of flirt with her, you know, like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's two things actually there. Well, for Richie, we didn't actually, because it's a beginner session move, I didn't ask you to roll your foretelling. Would you like to do that for us, please? So you're rolling plus your spirit. That's a start session move for your character. I think it's the only one.
That's a 13.
That will do it. So you've got 2 holds.
Yeah, 2 holds to spend on avoiding something terrible that's about to happen, and take +1 for all of our efforts to avoid it. Yeah.
So how do you want to approach this move? Are you trying to do a more social move on you, or are you trying to do psychometry? What is
So I have a move called skim the surface. When I touch someone, I can read their surface thoughts. And I think it's basically like setting him up for just like, he's really just trying to flirt with this woman and indulge, like spend some time with her, but really he's using that skim the surface to be like, what is she thinking about? So I can roll to see, because I can mess it up and I can hurt her and hurt both of us instead, which would be
that would be a good way to start the session. So yeah, go roll with your spirit again.
Well, guess what I do? I mess it up
badly.
I do a 2. A 3 in total. So yeah, badly mess it up.
What does it feel like when you mess it up?
I think it's like I think that I and the other character, the person I touch, kind of for a split second swap perspectives. So we're both looking at each other, and it's like a blinding dissonance. Like suddenly finding yourself in a different body, in a different thing, even for a split second, and it just causes like sharp, like just shock basically for both of us. Something you never get used to.
So I'm going to inflict 1 mark of harm on you. By the way, it feels like the harm is a psychic shock. This woman drops her cigarette tray and clatters to the floor, and everyone looks around, and you can see she's just fallen down as if she's just been hit, and you're there with your hand outstretched. I'm going to see if anyone would like to step in at that present moment in time.
I think I'll step in.
Mm-hmm.
Since I'm sort of we're acquainted and have been for years, right? And is there like a move I need to do that? Let's see. I'm sorry, I haven't memorized what all of them are.
Would you like to describe what you're doing, and I'll give you a hand?
Yeah, I think I'm going to just knock over my drink and then like exclaim loudly, and because I'm at the celebrity table, people turn to look, and kind of like the focus is taken a bit off of the situation.
Okay, sounds very much to me like what you're trying to do is distract the room and create an opportunity for Richie to slip away. Okay, so you can use this for mislead, distract, or trick. So roll with your mind.
And my mind is what? 1? No, 0.
0.
Okay. Awful. I'm not dumb. Okay. So I got also a terrible roll of just 5. So I guess I didn't manage to help at all.
All good drama for me. So just describe how it goes wrong then. What have you just done that didn't go well in a distraction? Have you called this a scene rather than a distraction?
I can do. I was sort of going to say that like perhaps it didn't cause as much fuss as I would have expected, and I'm kind of offended that people aren't more interested in what I'm doing. But I could also cause a scene if you like. That's the sort of
whichever. I'm happy for you to just describe.
So yeah, I think I spill my drink and make some loud exclamation, and people look over for a second, but then like lose interest and look back, and I'm just affronted by this, like, and nobody's even come to like get me a new drink or wipe it up or anything, and like, don't they know how important I am?
Obviously, what's just gone on here, I think, has caught people's too much of our attention, and your attempt to cause a scene has failed, and the eyes are still definitely on Richie. two guys who barely fit into their suits are making their way to the bar, pushing people out of the way to get to you. One of the bellhops has dropped his tray and run over to the girl who's collapsed to the floor. Anyone else want to act? Callous bastards. So at that point, the two mooks grab hold of Richie, one under each arm, pinning his arms behind his back.
Hey guys, it's just a big misunderstanding. You know, the young lady tripped and fell as those high heels that you got them wearing. It's hard for them to balance.
They look down at the bellhop who's sort of trying to bring her around. She's groaning on the floor, and I think it sounds like you're trying to persuade an MCC at this present moment in time, Will.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Another thing that I'm not very good at.
Roll with heart.
The dice moved for a second, and so I gotta just roll again.
I'll trust you.
That's a 5, so that's another failure.
In other games, you know, the number of 5s, everyone will go, "Loot, there's XP," but there's no good side to failure in Urban Shadows. One of the mooks gives you a stiff punch to the gut. I'm afraid I'm going to have to put another harm on you. And the two of them drag you away and out of the main room.
Wow. 2 out of 5 harm in the very first 10 minutes of the game. Nice.
That's exciting,
Yeah.
but it is Noir and people get hit a lot. So again, for people who've not played before, the harm track goes on your sheet. We've got Fate, and then it goes 2 at Grievous and 2 at Critical. After that, you die. Or at least you may die, but characters do have a death move, and that's always exciting. For a lot of the characters, it's not as deathly as you should think it would be. I'm looking at the Tainted here, especially. Okay, so who is Ruby sitting next to at this point, and how did she just reacted to this kerfuffle? You're muted, Caroline.
I think Ruby is at the bar nursing a suspiciously large whiskey or some similar spirit, probably bourbon actually, and yeah, she has been a little quiet since that thing with Blanche, but she is watching the room. And she definitely watches both Richie and the girl in a speculative fashion. She hasn't quite made her mind up where the opportunity lies just yet. But she is torn between drowning her sorrows and making her next move.
And how has Lee reacted to this? Effectively, just so they push straight past him, dragging Richie towards one of the back rooms. Nothing ever good happens in one of the back rooms in the Cairo.
Yeah, so I think Lee is actually like in not a waiter's outfit, but just like a what's the term? No, I've lost it. The sort of kitchen porter.
Busboy. Yeah,
busboy,
porter and busboy.
Yeah. And as Richie is as the guys drag Richie past, he's gonna say Hey, Richie man, what's going on?
These gents are just, helping me get some fresh air, Lee. Right, guys? No harm. I got other places to be. I don't have to. We can just call it a night. What do you say?
We gorillas in suits look at Lee and say, "Mind your business, mop hand," and they carry on dragging Richie away.
Hey, come on, guys. What's he done? Surely it's nothing too bad.
Touch one of the girls. You know how the boss feels about that. You don't like people touching the girls. Bad for business.
Richie, come on, man.
What? I didn't lay a hand on her. I just paid her some money and the girl fell over. I mean, come on, guys. Guys, like, listen. I know we don't look like much, but you don't want to get on the wrong side of him, I swear.
So one of the guys looks across to you and says, "You know this sucker?"
Yeah, he lives around my way.
So
Can I
yeah.
And I'm risking something now. Can I skim the surface of one of the guys holding me?
Yeah.
Good God, I hope I don't roll another crappy dice roll.
Sometimes I feel roll for your party just has it in for certain players.
So that's a 7. So I get to ask one.
Well done for your first success of the campaign.
Yes, yeah.
So describe again. You know how it feels when it goes wrong. When it works, what does it feel like? What does it look like if you were having like an internal Raymond Chandler monologue?
I think it differs from time to time, but like often the way it works is like I've got the person like leaning in my ear and just saying exactly what, like revealing their secrets or saying something, but like in a kind of, like private confidence kind of whisper. So I think in the case of this guy, I think what he tells me is what his hidden pain is.
It's a bit like a secular confessional.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can almost feel the train track scars on his arms and the coming down buzz of heroin in his system. It almost leaps across you, feeling that electric fire.
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that maybe that they whisper it to me, but I also feel like what they're explaining. Like in a flash, like I get the physical sensation of it. And I think as I say this, I'm like go and say, I look at the guy and I say, listen, I don't guys, there's look, friend, there's I'm sure you've got things to do other than beat me up over a simple misunderstanding. Like you got, what can I do to make it sweet? I got contacts. I could hook you up with something. You guys like to party? I've got I know people. I can help you out.
One of them unfolds their hands and turns around and looks at you. Say, okay, you can hit me up, and then you owe the boss a favor.
Sure. So I owe a new debt to somebody, I presume.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
You owe a debt to the very dapper British Fae who owns this nightclub. What do you think he should be called, Will? I'll leave you a moment to think about that and come back to you. So once things have as calming down, perhaps I'd like to suggest at this point that as things are climbing down, your eyes have been taken off this. Ruby, you do spot that Rose has spilled her drink. No one seems to be looking at her. They're all looking at Mr. Peck, who sort of clicks his fingers and drinks are coming along. But you do make contact with each other's eyes across the room. You also know Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck is a discoverer of young talent as well.
Yeah.
He looks across at you, and you, Rose, you hear him mutter under his breath, "What's she doing here?"
Am I supposed to be responding?
Yeah, he says, what is she doing here? She says, he mutters under her breath, his breath, you hear him saying. And he's shooting daggers across the room at Ruby.
Okay. I would like to try to figure someone out.
Seems appropriate.
I'm assuming he's mortal.
He is.
So not in my faction.
Have Ruby and Rose actually had a chance to meet previously? Are they aware of, presumably very much aware of each other's existence on a mortal scale, just because they're both known in the industry? But I'm just trying to work out what they know of each other as an opening gambit.
Why doesn't Rose answer that question?
I think that saying a bit like Rose and Victoria at least know. Victoria's like my BFF. I've decided now that Ruby is not like a normal mortal. Definitely has some supernatural things going on, but I don't think we really understand what the nature of them is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One of the demi-monde, but you don't quite know what and whether I'm likely to sprout claws or wings or throw spells at you or what.
I think we're sort of observing warily, not necessarily with any hostility because we just don't know, but like, especially given that the ancient has been taken out, we just, anybody that we're not sure about right now is kind of like looked at with scrutiny.
And what about yourself within that, I say, the half world, as it were? Obviously, mortals don't know what you are. How many of other people know what you are? The people that matter.
I think all the vampires sort of know each other.
Yeah.
So there's that, and I'm always so terrible with the names. I usually make little note cards for myself.
Don't worry about it.
Richie knows. Richie knows, right? Because I'm helping him with his visions through sort of having been around longer than makes sense. And Lee knows because I sort of tried to hire him in his capacity as a werewolf. And I think we have like an uncommon truce there. So I think most of the werewolves probably aren't super aware of me because vamps and werewolves not always the best of friends. And I'm trusting Lee with that. As for sort of other supernatural creatures, I think we can all maybe like sense something about each other. Like the way that I can tell that
hungry.
Yeah, we can sense when someone is mortal or other. But I don't know that outside of my personal associations and other vampires that people know that I'm a vampire.
Okay. Well, I've seen that. That's fine. All right. Okay. So, how did your roll go for figure?
Oh, I
someone
forgot to
out?
actually do it.
Yeah. While you're doing that, can you actually talk me through what you're doing? Because I'm not used to this tool.
Okay, so on roll for your party, the easiest way to do it. So we're rolling 2d6. So you type in 2
in
into
by
the
the
yeah, yeah. Put a label in with your name and choose a color that you haven't seen on the screen so far, and then the dice should be close to you. When you need to roll again, I'll do that on Richie's a moment. You choose 2 dice and then you click.
And are you using the
Reroll
modifier
selected.
at all, or do you just add them on at the end?
You add the modifier on at the end, so just roll them as if you're in 2d6.
Okay, that's fine.
I trust players implicitly, and if you prefer to roll actual dice, I have no issue with that.
No, that's absolutely fine. I just wasn't familiar with the tool.
So, Rose, did you?
I rolled a fail again. I'm one of those players when you said that some people the site seems to have, like, I once had 2 advancements that I hadn't taken by the middle of a second session because I had rolled so many fails. So this is unsurprising to me.
It feels sometimes that we don't want to roll to dump our dice. We want to dump the dice rolling room because it can be absolutely horrible sometimes. Cool. Okay. So you notice nothing. But he gets up, excuses himself, and does leave the scene.
To go talk to Ruby, or just in general?
I think he's on his way out. He just sort of walks up to him, really stares him down in that leading action Hollywood actor way. And
so I think Ruby gives a little smirk, glances over to see what Rose was drinking before it got spilled, waves to the barman, and one goes over to Rose of whatever it was she was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awfully kind. So I think I sort of cheers across the bar with a curious look, and I'm contemplating going over to talk to Ruby, but I'm waiting to see. So I am not sure exactly what's going on. So I've cheers to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you respond in some way?
Oh yeah. So it is. There is that slight look to her. It's not a vampire's look exactly, but it is the just saw a predator off my turf. Can deal with that. Look.
Okay.
Not treating you explicitly as a threat, more as a we saw him gone.
Okay. So I think that
No good for either of us.
Interesting. All right. So I think I'd like to tell the waiter that Ruby's next drink is on me, whatever she's having. But I'm going to stay at my table for now.
Yep.
Okay. So let's cut back across to Lee and to Richie. What are you guys doing?
Dusting myself off, offering Lee a cigarette.
Yeah, Lee will accept and he'll pull out a book of matches. They're probably from the Cairo, and strikes a light for the both of them. And so, now, what the hell did you do to that girl?
Nothing that won't be nothing under my control, you know, Lee.
Well, I ain't gonna pretend I do, but
Yeah, well, I think you might have more of an idea about things you can't control than you let on sometimes. But hey, I owe you a drink. You want to? Well, and then I look him up and down, and I go, and I look at the the kitchen hand clothes that you're wearing, and I'm like, well, I don't think we'll be going anywhere as nice as this. Yeah.
yeah, well, it's a paycheck.
Yeah, yeah. You know any liquor stores?
Sure, there's one just around the corner.
Yeah, well, I'm buying. Come on.
Yeah, and I think Lee will follow him out of the club.
You're walking out of the
But
club.
I thought we were kind of like I was effectively kicked out, right? Like, and it was
Yeah, you're being asked to leave, definitely.
yeah. And I met Lee in the sort of non-public facing part of the club. So I figured that we're not going to be walking into the casino, into the club floor again. Me disgraced and him looking like a potwash. So I think we're going to go buy some liquor and sit on the hood of my car and just shoot the shit, basically.
Go sit on a stoop somewhere.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if the drink that I sent to Ruby has arrived yet, and if so, if Ruby has a reaction.
What does Ruby drink? Muted.
Ruby drinks very much the rye end of bourbon, so it is your bourbon's better than I do, love.
The Canadian Club whiskey, probably.
Yep. She's gone through a few of them this evening.
So how does she react when the whiskey arrives?
Oh, she will. The other one has gone down the hatch in the meantime, and she will just hear that it's from Rose and raise a glass. How busy does Rose's table look?
It's just her on it at the moment.
In which case, yeah, Ruby will come sauntering on over. And yeah, she walks like she's, for all she's still got that, it's youthful on the outside face. She walks like she's been in this town some time. There's a steadiness there, a confidence, but also that cynicism and you mess with me, you better know what you're getting into look to her. So yeah, she'll come, and may I?
Absolutely. Please join me. So you've got all the sort of looks that you've just described, but you're also slightly drunk, or you just have a high tolerance and have been drinking a lot.
She looks like the drink doesn't really hit her anymore. It's more, well, you wouldn't not drink if you had the chance, would you? But it's not making you any the worse for wear.
I mean, I drink Bloody Marys primarily.
Yeah. So yeah, basically the point is that Yeah, she drinks like she could be drinking water. It's more habitual than getting her drunk.
How bloody are those Marys, Rose?
It depends on who's making them for me. I think.
You're known in this club, so is it real blood or is it tomato juice?
I think if Maggie's there, she has, which she is tonight, she has connections in the kitchen or behind the bar who are trustworthy enough and have the supplies. So it's not necessarily every time I go in. It's like if the right bartenders are there. It's pleasantly
it's just enough
surprising.
to tomato to not look too bloody.
So I'm going to probably suggest, and this time it's not, because this is possibly the one that Ruby ordered for you. So let's say it's a normal bloody Mary, right? You sit down. As you're sitting down, I would like to invite Roby, to roll a figure something out, which is a roll with your mind.
Sorry, which of us? Sorry, because we've got two similar names. Sorry, you want
that's for Ruby, right?
Right. Okay. So you want me to be doing?
I would like you to roll a figure something out with mind.
Mind. So I am rolling. So it's 2, and it yields. And then submit, yeah?
Yep.
So that's a... You're adding them? You're taking the best? What's the...
It's a 2d6 powered by the apocalypse. So add them up and take your take or add your modifier onto it.
Okay, so that is an 8 then.
So that is something that you will have figured out, which as a minute you sit down, you spot it. There is a binding symbol on the table cut into the water or the drink that Rose spilt earlier, and I'll cut across from there. There's a binding symbol. Yeah, you're left static on the table, but you understand what has happened to you.
Okay, Caroline is confused. That I have been summoned here.
You've sat down at the table. Right. Let me re-describe the scene rather than in the spilt drink. Someone has put a symbol, which is a mystical symbol, and as you've sat down, you realize you've got into its zone, and you find yourself unable to leave the table.
Okay.
Am I also similarly? Okay. Interesting.
So I'm going to cut to the stoop outside. How are the guys?
So, what would Lee drink, David?
Whatever he's offered, I think.
Cool. So we're drinking some bourbon, sharing the bottle, and like I think what's happening is Richie's sort of unloading, and he's like, thanks for sticking up for me, man. You're a good guy. You keep things. Don't think I ain't seen how much safer it is around the block with you around. I gotta say, I appreciate it.
Well, look, just know if you had laid a hand on that girl, then I'd have been kicking your ass with those other guys round the back too.
Yeah. That's what I like about you, man. You're always I gotta stop saying man. That's not a very 1950s thing to say. I gotta say, you're a real swell guy, real stand-up. Always looking to protect people. And Richie kind of looks down in the bottle and he's like, "Wish I could say the same." And he knocks back the thing, and he's like, and he looks right at Lee, and he's like, sometimes you can know that you got to protect someone from something, but you just can't see how. You always seem to know how to do it, and wish I could say the same.
Look, I don't know. I can stand up to a guy, or I can knock him down. That's about all I can do. Just most of the troubles we run into, one of those does the job.
Yeah. Do you remember that Blanche kid? Right outside the block.
Yeah. What? I mean,
I don't know. I never told this to anyone before, but I saw that girl every night for like weeks. Tried to drink out. Anyway, couldn't do anything about that. Kind of worried I won't be able to do anything about anybody else I got to protect. And I'm trying to trigger the intimacy move with Lee.
that's good.
Like sharing the emotional intimacy of like Richie not being able to protect people, but seeing the people who need it, versus Lee's, sees someone right there and steps in every time. Whereas I always seem to see things coming, but I can never be there.
Cool.
Am I okay to do that, GM David?
I am happy to accept that as a successful use of the intimacy move.
Yeah.
One mark in advance because you have hit an intimacy move.
Yep. So that would be with. Oh, are you Knight?
I am. Yes, unfortunately.
Oh, damn it! That's already the one I've already got marked.
That's the way it crumbles. But you can ask up to 3 questions, marking a corruption for each.
I think that what I would like to ask is who is coming for Dave? Like, who or what is coming for Lee?
Cool.
And the other thing I would like to ask 2 questions: who or what is coming for Lee, and also like where would Richie need to be not where would Richie need to be, what can Richie do anything to help him? Like,
okay, mark your corruption. I've noted those. I'm just going to give myself a moment to think. And I'll come back to you. And I'm going to cut across to the ladies. How is Ruby doing? And what does Rose spot? I think Rose can probably smell the magic in the air.
Yeah, I think I don't know that Ruby is stuck yet, because I wasn't the one who carved the symbol, and it's not affecting me. But it feels like something weird's going on, and I already knew that something odd was going on with Ruby. So I think I'm just gonna try to start a conversation sort of normally and see where it goes. So like, oh bother, what was that fellow's name I was sitting with?
Gregory Peck.
So yeah. So Gregory really hopped it, huh? It seems like maybe you two knew each other. I don't know. I don't like the way he just walked out. I'm glad you came over. Us dames need to stick together. The guys in this joint tonight, I don't know.
Well, girls in this town, they don't need any And guys like him looking out for their interests, do they? Not with us around.
I don't think so. I think he should probably be looking after himself.
He certainly seemed interested in doing so.
You're not wrong. So, what brings you out tonight to, what's it called? The Cairo? Can we write down the location name somewhere? I'm so bad with memory.
It was Cairo.
Yeah, it is. I will add another sheet. It's a good call, and I'll add another sheet on location.
It's a hot old night, and well, let's just say the bar was calling. It's been a strange month or so. How long ago was lunch?
Just let's say 24. Last night. We're going to say last night.
Been a strange day or two.
Sorry, can you say that again? My internet blipped.
It's been a strange night or two.
It really has. I'm a bit unsettled, really. There have been a couple of things happening that seem a bit unexplained and worrisome. But I don't know, what circles you travel in, so I don't presume.
We all travel in the interesting ones, let's be honest.
That, I would say, is entirely accurate. But I would love to know more about you. I feel like I've seen you around town for quite a while and haven't had the pleasure of your acquaintance before this evening.
Ruby Chance pulls out. Of course, it's from the cleavage. It's Noir. A business card. His talent scout. Not that you need any help, idea.
Still, lovely to meet you. Ruby, I'm Rose West, and I'm sure I've come across some of your clients, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sort of waiting.
Fewer than there was. And she raises a glass in that sort of absent friends and those gone before kind of way, and empties half the glass down her throat.
I'll raise my glass with you, but just sip it for now. So I'm gonna try to push this scene somewhere else. I'm not. What do you know? I'm not really feeling the vibe of this club anymore. Would you want to check someplace else out? Where else do you like to go in town?
Oh, there's a few places. Mind you, if we could get some better service around here, that would be something. Do you want to wait for somebody to wipe this table? Ridiculous, we're sitting drinking here with this spillage.
I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking, is that I'd rather be somewhere where, spilled drinks and things get addressed, but also where we could talk a little more freely. I don't know.
If they can't notice it themselves, then at least they will get some advice from somebody they might remember.
I'm quite happy to say the minute you say about wiping the table, someone does quickly come over and starts. They look at the mess on the tablecloth and whip it away. Ruby, the binding spell is broken as the is moved away, but there is sort of a whisper of a word, which is a whisper of power, but a word in a language I doubt your character understands.
Can I hear it as well?
Yeah, if either of your characters have a reason to understand Hebrew, then you can shout now.
I mean, I was going to say,
out of character, I'm Jewish.
It's Technicolor 1950s film industry.
You roboted then. Can you say it again?
No, I'm just saying that the amount of, and definitely not saying this in an anti-Semitic way, but there is a lot of Jewish influence in the film industry at that point in time, in the Hammerstein and all the rest of it kind of way. So I don't think Ruby does, but there is, if somebody wanted that in.
I think it might be recognizable to Rose.
Yeah.
Then it is a word which literally is chained.
Okay. So maybe I don't know the exact word definition, but like I recognize it as being a word that is powerful and not particularly positive. And did you hear that?
Something like that, yeah.
So I'm going to cut the scene there, back to the table, and I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer Richie's questions. So at that moment, as you pass the bottle from Will to, as Richie passes the bottle to Lee, the air, all the heat immediately drops out of the air. The lights start crackling, and the bulb above you goes and fizzles away. And all of a sudden, everything is white. And then standing, pointing, floating in the air is Blanche. She's wearing the same summer dress that she died in, sunglasses on, and her hand points out directly at Richie. And she says, "Red names on the blacklist. They will burn us all." And then she points to Lee and says, "His name is on the list." There's a moment of pain in Lee's eyes, and you can see yourself standing on the Hollywood sign, Richie holding the Lee's hand. Something is behind you, and you turn to face it. And I'm going to pull the curtain down on the game and the slot at that point. Does that answer your questions well enough for you, Will?
Yeah, that's definitely something to go on. And I think that Richie, this all comes at Richie in a flash, and he sort of like rocks back on his heels for a second, breathes out deeply, and then just takes a huge swig from the whiskey bottle. And, just to
be clear, you both saw the ghost.
Oh, both of us saw it. Okay,
both
cool.
Saw the ghost.
I think the same thing happens. He just then drinks it down, and then pats Lee on the back and goes like, hands the bottle over to him and goes like, "Yes, so maybe you have a better idea of what I was talking about earlier."
Cool. Okay, we'll have 10 minutes. We're at time, but people got 10 minutes to do stars and wishes just to close down the game. Everyone all right with that? Cool. So set them up so I can track them down in just the order that I put them in with players' names. Pearl, do you have a star you'd like to give to everybody?
I think it's just sort of a general star for the setting. Kabul? It's very small on my screen, the word that was just typed in Hebrew. Kabul? Is that what it is? Kabul. Something like that? Anyway, sorry. So yeah, I thought the questions asked at the beginning and the way they were answered gave a really good idea of the setting and sort of some other things, and I think we have some interesting complications of various natures going on. I'm really looking forward to seeing how things play out. I also really liked Will's jumping into just having like all the deaths and bad things happening. That always makes for an entertaining game. And yeah, I'm interested to see where all of this goes in our dark little city.
It's such a noir thing to have this one poor character who seems to be at the heart of all the pain and suffering. So yeah, I agree. Thank you to Will. Caroline, have you got any stars you'd like to give out?
Well, more just generally to everyone, which is thanks. I'm not used to playing by Hangout, so thanks for bearing with me with my muted issues and all the rest of it. I'll get the hang of it. You'd think I'd be used to it because I do video, phone conferencing all the time at work, but it's different when you're role playing.
You'd be surprised how many experienced players forget to mute and unmute. David will now nod in agreement to this.
I'm mostly remembering to mute so as not to talk over people. It's just the not being not muted. Yeah.
Aggressive muting is good play behavior, and people will always remind you if you're not unmuted. So it's better that than the other. So any particular portrayal or actions you think need calling out for recognition?
I think it's all coming together awesomely. I've got a real vibe for this. It's hot in the city kind of thing. I bounced you a track on Messenger, which is a track called Friday the 13th, which is just a day that starts badly and gets worse and worse, which I think might be a fun one to play us out on.
I want to play Billy Idol, but that's not really. Okay, so again, around that, David, any stars you'd like to give out?
Yeah, I think in again sort of more general. I think this time, I think I like the way I like the detail everyone came up with for sort of the weird stuff around the city, and yeah, it felt like a good mixture of odd happenings and strange people. That was all really good.
Great. Will, any stars?
I love all the opening questions, the establishing questions, like the supernatural nearly breaking into the daylight. And I'm really happy that everyone's chosen like fairly predatory characters. You know, I like that the mesh of it all, especially as you're from two different factions of predatory characters, and Lee is kind of, the violent protector rather than he's a hunter, but doesn't prey on people like you do. I like that as well.
Yeah, I'm glad people enjoyed spending a little more time in the world building. If you've got the benefit of a 5-session game, I thought I'd take that opportunity just to allow a little bit more time to breathe some life into the world. I'm giving stars. I appreciate it when a player dresses up for the occasion, so I'm giving a star to Pearl for the dress up. And again, I've called him out before already, but Will, the way that you put your character into that I can really, he feels so much like he's already the core of something going wrong in a terrible noir novel already. So great.
Yeah, he's nearly dead, so that's also a good start.
Yeah, punched up, bruised, broken jaw. That's always a good forward. So I'm going. So Pearl's Veil and Witchy's falling into trouble for me. And any wishes? We'll go back in reverse order. Will, any wishes? Things you either want to see explore more of? I found this very useful for me to think about framing scenes in the next session as well. But it doesn't have to just be next session. It can be ongoing.
I would like, and this is kind of a bit meta at the same time, but I would like there to be another character in the power faction. I have someone in mind for that, perhaps, but we can discuss that next session.
If you didn't notice, by the way, Gregory Peck is in the power faction. So
yes, cool. Gregory Peck. We've just got to get depths on Gregory Peck, and it's all sorted.
Yeah, but we want more characters in power. One way the players can help with that is, and I will choose someone else to point at next time, and you can always point back at Power, and that allows us to continue to develop that faction, another faction we haven't seen. Next time around, we probably wouldn't want to point at Knight again, not unless no one wants to advance their characters. David, do you have any wishes?
No. Well, I mean, my wish is I suppose one that's kind of an inevitable one, really. But I'm looking forward to exploring more of the city. So I think that will happen anyway. But that's kind of I'd like to see.
If anyone's feeling super keen in the next week and there are things that you want to put in as locations to explore, tidbits in the location sheet, you are absolutely more than welcome to do that. I think that can be helpful. It's one of my favourite things about Urban Shadows is the city around you. Caroline, any wishes? Muted.
I can see a potential schism on that same social strata we were talking about crossing between Ruby and Rose being on a we can get into any club and the boys being on the back door. I think we need to think about how we keep that mixed up to keep the characters inter-engaged. I think the other thing which I always adore with games is, does anyone want a Spotify playlist?
I'm more than happy for you to put together someone. I'm happy to set one up. I'm happy if someone else sets up
I'd say
Spotify playlist.
Shared Spotify playlists give me life, and I'm always happy to contribute to them. So if people want to do that, I'm up for it, but I don't want to impose it on anyone if they feel like it's a between session duty or something.
It's completely up to level of commitment people want to put into the game, but I quite like them. And Pearl, any wishes?
There we go. This is so I'm not used to the game yet, so I have to sort of like anything I say about mechanics and stuff maybe take with a grain of salt, because maybe I just am not using to the full. I do wish that there was something more that happened on fail rolls, because I'm gonna fail every roll forever if my history tracks. And it feels like I'm failing to like do anything interesting with my character, because I try to do things and then they just fail over and over again. So I would, as a selfish personal wish, would like for my character to like do an action that actually works and has an interesting consequence of some sort or provokes an interaction.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy to be a little more intrusive on fails if people would like me to be. I think try to be careful with that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it needs to be something terrible. Just
no, but just more direct input into the fiction in relation to that. So what I will take that on board and ask more directed questions and give a little less choice on fails. I'm letting people find their voice a little tonight, but that's fine. My wish has already been picked up, which I want to draw the characters together a little bit. I also want to see your supernatural lives a little bit more as well. I feel that we really do need to explore Lee's people that he protects in his territory, and the other vampires and tainted in the city. I think are other things that I think we need to, or we will definitely explore out into.
Can I suggest something on that then? Because I think we've potentially written ourselves into a little bit of a corner with the we do not reveal. If I can call you back, Dave, to the idea of the division bell, which is going way back to Mage in London.
You don't. That was you don't. You can reveal to yourself. You don't reveal to mortal kind. So if that's the way to take it,
what I'm suggesting is a not mortals nightclub, which is you don't get in unless you're a bit weird. Which means that once you're in there, your conversations can be a little bit less covert.
I would have thought we were already in that with the club you're in tonight, but I can more explicitly call it out. But it's not just bringing you into a social situation; it's exploring those aspects of their lives. I don't think Lee's going to bring his mates to the nightclub.
No,
I'm
not
Lee's
saying
world. That's not my wish.
No, sorry. In which case, I'm going off on an angle and ignore that. Yes, okay. As it happens, this club was run by a fae. Probably everything in this city is run by somebody of power, but that's not quite the same as saying it's a not safe space exactly, because nowhere's safe. But you can be reasonably sure you're not bumping into mortals, so you can actually let the mask down a bit.
Yeah, sure.
So I think the idea that there are places like that in the city which are
a neutral ground.
Yeah.
Sure, neutral ground. Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
whether it's Max Bar or Division Bell or whatever fiction you come out of it at, but
maybe it's just someone's powerful's private soirees, but like they're just above all that rivalry and nonsense,
or they're just so powerful you don't piss. So long as you don't piss the host off, you can afford to have your little contretemps downstairs.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put that into the locations, and I'll figure something out.
That's actually
I'm
what I
not
was.
sure it necessarily solves all our issues in terms of exploring the packs and things like that, but it gives opportunity where we're potentially holding back on chat.
Yeah, I'll take that on board. But we don't have to frame bringing everyone together in a single location with 45 minutes of play was what I wanted to achieve tonight. So you can frame the scenes where you want to. I'd rather not have the game, if that's okay. People turn into sound scenes in the same locations. That will then break exploring the city.
Yeah, no, agreed on that. Well, make them expensive to get into. Make them cost a favour to get into, so you may well go into them if you've got a specific thing to hash out with somebody where you want to be safe, but people pay for that kind of hosting.
Sure, no problem. I'm very happy that one of the factions, if I want to do that, can think about doing so. That's fine with me.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was trying to go with Ruby when I was saying, like, would you want to go to a different place where we could talk more openly?
So let's frame. Sorry, I'm very happy to pick that up at the start of the next scene. Let's frame somewhere where that happens.
I'd also just love to explore all of the debt connections we made, like the legacy. For me at least, a scene with Richie talking about his visions, or somebody else's. Like, I would like to see those come out.
Yeah,
those debts be put into play.
Yeah, I agree.
Mode to how, because we've sort of said, oh, X bad thing has happened, and so Ruby owes Lee some debts. Maybe we can use those as cutscenes at some point to actually flick back and say how some of those debts arose in a little bit more detail. That gives us then hooks to hang the relationship off a little bit more.
Sure, you don't need my permission to do that. You can just role play through them. Really feel free to do that. If you're going to say I'm going to flash back to, yeah, okay, right, all right then, folks. So I'll stop the broadcast there.